Yo, what's up? Today I'm making my second devlog for my Souls-like idle game. I've been working on the combat portion still, and it's been a much harder experience identifying how Dark Souls does combat. So I'm reading this off my Discord I posted on December 3rd at 3 a.m. I've spent the past 3 hours trying to understand Dark Souls 1 damage. I watched a man kill every boss in the game, and my damage formula was only mostly right. But mostly right is good enough for me. So I'm going to open up the video. So I believe it is this guy's video, and he also does a level 1 playthrough, which is extremely helpful because if you're a level 1, you're never going to level up. So we know exactly what your attributes are at all times. And if we know the random spell buffs you have, the equipment, the weapon level, we can somewhat accurately predict all the damage you do. Unfortunately, my damage formula was slightly off near the end of the game. I'm not sure what was going on. And then there's also some truncation in Dark Souls 1. So my theory is that nothing is actually truncated. It's just that in UI, everything gets cast to an int, which is effectively the same as flooring it to an int. Now, there's no actual way to verify this. So in my code, I'm just going to cast all damage to int and basically floor it. There's this pretty helpful website, Souls Planet. I'm not sure how they figured it out, but if you just put in your attributes, you put in a weapon level, and infusion, you're gonna get a pretty accurate UI attack sheet rating. I did find it was inaccurate for humanity scaling, but if your humanity was maxed out, it was accurate. Put it in all in some godforsaken formula, which I shall go over. Look up the enemy resistances, and then you're going to get your actual damage dealt. Now, this has led me to verifying all the damage. Oh, let's see if this works. That can't be right. Open source. I must have got rid of the hornet. I wonder if I could undo this. Broken straight sword. Hornet ring riposte. There we go. So, a couple things I did. Number one, I was checking out this Hornet Ring video as we play it here, and he uses a Morning Star and counters this guy. This guy's the Crestfallen Warrior. Boom, and he does a 1, 2, and then third attack. So it's 9, 18, and then 1, 3, 6. Later on in the video, he opens up his inventory. I can see that it's a Morning Star. Equipment doesn't matter. He's using a ring that doesn't matter, and a Hornet Ring, which should ostensibly increase his critical damage by 30%. And we can also see his attributes, most importantly. And we can see his soul level is 104. So I was thinking maybe this guy's in New Game Plus. It's not super clear. So given all that, though, we can calculate a Morning Star. So this is a Morning Star. We plug in all the numbers, like it's doing base attack 83 in the UI. It's probably a hammer. Actually, this is probably a strike. That's a mistake on my part. Let me just fix that. Physical strike. And then it does no magic. This is its base stamina cost. Now, paradoxically, base stamina cost is not... Yeah, that should be changed to do. Right now, we don't actually use that because endurance is not implemented yet. Poise damage, no clue what this means. And then we're estimating attacks per second. So we estimate this by somebody. Unfortunately, we can't data mine Dark Souls for animation data. So instead, someone went through every single weapon, put it in a giant spreadsheet, and estimated the attacks per second. And using these attacks per seconds, we're going to do some math, invert this to seconds per attack, and we're going to calculate how long our progress bar should be. But for now, we're just going to hard code it. And then we have these motion values. Now, there's a couple ways to calculate motion values. One way is you just look at a ginormous sheet. Again, someone has gone in and calculated every single motion value in the game, and these are extra multipliers to your damage. For example, this short sword and long sword and pretty much every straight sword, the one-handed light attack does 100 motion value, which is divided by 100, so it basically does 1 damage, or multiplied by 1. And then if you backstab, that multiplies it by 2, and then if you riposte, it multiplies it by 2. The other way to calculate motion value is you look at this table, and we have every single weapon class in the game, and then as we can see, straight swords are indeed 200 motion value, etc., etc. The problem with this sheet is that it's not telling you the motion value of non-critical hits. So if you look at the full sheet, this longsword, good old longsword, it's 100, 100, 100, and then I don't know what 1 HD R1 means, but I assume it's the 4th attack in the sequence. It's not super clear. But as we can see with the R2, it goes 135, then 125. And so this is how you calculate whether the two-handed attack, the one-handed attack, the heavy attack, the light attack, what is it going to be multiplied by? It's not 100% consistent across every single class, and it's not 100% consistent across every single weapon. So we're probably going to use this enormous sheet to calculate the motion values. If we want to just calculate the base weapon value, I'm probably going to use this massive sheet. I'm not sure how somebody took this on themselves to calculate, but this is everything. So you got your attribute requirements, your name, even all the random infusion types, and then these are the stat scaling, humanity scaling. Man, that's confusing. Base fizz, base magic, base fire, base lightning, and then base stamina. This is a very confusing stat line because I am not sure where it is used. We think base attack stam is how much damage you do to shields. So when the shield blocks, you would take 10 endurance damage. That seems awfully low. So yeah, I'm not super sure. Poise damage, thankfully we're not going to implement poise. Throw attack rate. So the way I figured out what these are is by looking at the Master Dark Souls. So this is directly data mined from the Dark Souls map or data. Let's see, let's go to weapons. And then let's go to throw attack rate. Throw. And so they think that this is a critical multiplier. And this is the other way to calculate motion values. So all these random daggers have 31, etc., etc. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that does actually seem accurate. The bandit knife does have a slightly better critical attack rate. And it's got its weight. I have no clue what this column does. Blocking, which is mostly relevant for shields. Stability, which is a % reduction. Durability. And these two random columns that I have no clue what they do. A big problem with this stat sheet, as you notice, is that it's missing a lot of random stuff that this sheet, Dark Souls, the actual data has, like the repair price. I have no clue what that means. Let me read this real quick. Affects certain TAE animation event timing support jump table. Value means voice recovery. Okay. Like the sell price, the purchase price, these things you wouldn't really get, especially these columns, like the material set ID. These you wouldn't get unless you were actually scraping and downloading data. So, and then it's going to have 3 extra columns here. The anti-demon status, the anti-saint status or divine, and then the, random stuff here. So these 4 extra columns we're going to have to add or just hard code. Okay, so now we have the weapon. So now we have all the weapon values that we could want, and we put it in our weapon item schema object. And we know the player's attributes. So that player who was fighting, he was soul level 100. That's why his attributes are so high. And then We know the motion value. So here I'm doing a light attack, but I believe because the first hit is a Hornet Riposte, we're going to look at our motion value. Because the first hit is a riposte, we're going to look at our Hornet Riposte value, and it's going to do 0.6 or 60% damage on the first one, 60% on the second one, and then finally do a massive crit of 233% on the final attack, which was the 136 damage, I believe. And so we put that here, 136, and then we expect 9 damage on the first one. Let me go into the insanity of attack rating. Dark Souls has an insane formula. This is what I was trying to study for 2 hours, getting this insane formula working. First, you get the base attack rate, as explained in the Dark Souls math video. We get the base attack rate. Base attack rate is basically taken from the giant table over here. Right? So whatever this column is and whatever damage type, just match it up. So if the damage type is Fizz, return the base Fizz, etc., etc. There is, however, one caveat. If the weapon level is a certain weapon level, then you must scale this base attack damage. And this is like the giant formula. Everything is slightly different, but as we all know, the uninfused, here we go, none, is just a little weapon level times 0.1, and then you add that to 1. So a level 10 will do 200% damage, and max level none will do 250. Okay, so that's base attack rate. Get the motion value. For us, we're not going to support different attack types, but if we wanted to, we could put in the swing type, and we can put in something like heavy attack, light attack, riposte, plunging crit, etc., etc. Most kicks don't do any damage, by the way, but they're there anyways. And then additional multipliers, mostly for the red tearstone ring. Paradoxically, this will increase your attack rating instead of your raw damage. All right, so now we finally get our attack rating. Then we get the attribute scaling. So if you remember in Dark Souls, the Morning Star has a 75% strength rating, and then we're gonna get all the other ones, but 90% of the time these are gonna be 0 anyways. But we're gonna get it anyways. So your strength scaling is equal to here. Let's just pretend this is 75. And then we're gonna get the weapon level scaling multiplier. Holy moly, is this annoying. Basically, as you level up your weapon, the scaling multiplier gets a little bit better. And at level 16, I started adding some extra stuff because I wasn't sure what to do. I'm not sure if we're gonna allow that, but might as well allow it. And so we're gonna take this, which in our Morning Star example is 75. This weapon level scaling multiplier, which if it's a level 0 weapon, it's going to be 1. And then we multiply that or divide it by 100. And so we do that for every attribute. For the Morning Star, we can ignore all of these because it has no scaling with those attributes. And then we add scale attack strength plus the attack rating, and that will give us our total attack rating for Fizz. And in our example, there's no fire, magic, or whatever damage, so that's actually good enough. And then we finally have our total attack rating. We can actually tell what the damage taken is. Holy moly, this is taking forever, I know. But in the actual game, we would get every single one separately. So the Fizz attack rating would be defended by your physical armor that the player has, and then magic, etc. Fire defended by fire defense, lightning defended by lightning defense. In our case, we know we're already doing 0 fire, magic, or lightning damage, so we're just gonna skip that. And then we have the Crestfallen Warrior stats, which are taken from, you guessed it, another Excel sheet. Okay, I found it. Unfortunately, the Crestfallen Warrior is, I think, a player character, which means he actually has equipment, he has armor, and he probably does have attributes, because if you add up his armor value, it does not equal to 227 Fizz. But it is what it is. So we're just going to take these values at face value and plug it in here. And so now we have theoretically everything we need to calculate how much damage we deal. So if we were to R1 a Crestfallen Warrior with those attributes, we should do about 18 damage. If we were to Hornet Ring Riposte, we should do about 9 because we're doing only 60% of the damage multiplied by 1.3, which is a Hornet Ring special ability. And then if we were to do a Mega Riposte, we should do either 136 damage, or I'm not 100% sure, it might be accumulating the 2 previous 9 damage numbers. So we're going to do 136 minus 18 damage. I'm not sure about that, but it's 2.33 multiplier on our attack rating, and then a 30% increase on our raw damage dealt. So if we run these two functions inside of our Unity editor, that's what all of these things are. And unfortunately, everything is wrong. Classic. So the only reason I could think of that these numbers are wrong is that this wiki fandom is incorrect. I think these are correct values, but you know, they could be incorrect. Another thing is that this guy's video is actually in New Game Plus. If you notice, his level is 104. That's very high level. So you might just be recording this in New Game Plus. Not to mention his Estus Flask is maxed out. So I'm not sure how this guy is still around. Unless you purposely do some weird shenanigans, it is possible for him to survive. But having a max level Estus Flask like this kind of implies that it's a New Game Plus. And in New Game Plus, enemies' defenses increases. It's not formulaic though. In the very first New Game Plus, they do some special overrides to make sure New Game Plus specifically is a little bit harder in a sort of curated way. And then around New Game Plus 5, everything becomes formulaic, and then it becomes very, very exponential around, like, I don't know, New Game Plus 20, although they do cap out at like New Game Plus 6. So you have to mod the game to enable infinite New Game Plus. So unfortunately, this video is kind of a wash. It is not really working. The good news is there is another video where this little girl, she's using the bandit knife, and she is unfortunately leveled up. But you can see here she's reposting a bunch of these undead soldiers, which we mostly know what their damage values are, or at least their resistance values are, because they should be listed here. So undead soldier, so Firelink Shrine, so they're probably this guy. I think they're called undead soldiers, not hollow soldiers. Firelink Shrine, skeletons, these are the graveyard people. Undead merchant, hollow warrior. Maybe it is this guy. That's pretty low defense values. So it could be these guys. And so we're gonna plug those in to a, oh, it is hollow warrior. So 85 defense across the board, which is the only thing that really matters. Yeah, 85 defense. Okay, and so we also have a bandit knife. So we implemented that right below here. So it does about 56 base fizz. And then it's got its motion values for backstab, which is a lot higher than 2x damage. It's closer to 3.6x damage. And then the riposte is going to be 4x damage, a little bit more. And then I, of course, mean attack rating, 4x attack rating. I'm already screwing it up. So he's got a buckler. And then skip around. So we can see here. Oop. There we go. We finally see the stat screen of this bandit, or actually thief. And so I plugged it in here as a leveled thief. They put in 18 into their dexterity. Everything else is basically thief stats. And then if we watch her fight, you can see here, boom, riposte, and then 247 damage. So I plugged that into one of my tests. Damage dealt level thief to hollow warrior riposte, 247, and yes, we can see that everything else besides the Hornet Ring stuff did pass, and everything is doing exactly how much damage I expected it to. So the final step of verification is another playthrough. This person is still in the tutorial area. He's got a bandit knife. He's using it with one hand, and he just riposted this poor guy. He did 232 damage. Let's see if that works. So as you can see here, damage dealt to Hollow does 232, and as we know, here every single thing actually works. It simply works. Now the big problem I had was this boss critical. Boom, 332 damage. And if we see here, I don't actually have 332. 400% times 47. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's see, damage dealt to Asylum Demon, plunge crit. Let's go ahead and change this to plunge. And then instead of 1.0, it's gonna be a bandit knife, which is 1.47 multiplier on the attack rating. And according to the video, we should see exactly 332 F damage. Damage taken by... Oh, where did I go? There it is. By the Asylum Demon. Let's just double check who is swinging this. It is a thief. I believe this is unleveled thief. Alright, let's go ahead and run. Please work. Yeah. Unfortunately, it has a much closer value, but we're still off. Oh, maybe because in the video he's actually two-handing his. He's very sneaky actually. He two-hands his knife to get that extra 200% during this scripted combat. I don't think it's gonna change that much though. So let's see it. Oh, let's go. So now we know that it does in fact work. The plunging, the critical bonus on a dagger does matter. So for the past 2 weeks, I've been looking at Dark Souls math. On the right, we have an image that's displaying the table. The table shows how much we should multiply the stat scaling modifier, basically, whatever your attribute is. And then over here, this is a table that's telling us how to multiply the base attack value of every single weapon in the game. And using this, and then we combine it with this table, which gives us the base damage of every single weapon in the game. Then we combine it with this, which shows us, we can't easily copy this table, but it shows us the stamina cost of every single weapon in the game. And then we combine it with this, which shows us the motion value, which is another multiplier for all the R1s and R2s. The critical multipliers are somewhat inaccurate, as we know. These are pretty accurate, but it's really just the weapon critical rate multiplied by whatever weapon class it is. Finally, we look at this table, which is the true Dark Souls table. Finally, we use this table, which will give us the attack speed of every single weapon in the game. And then we can finally import that and create a hand axe.